Okay, so for this lab, we're gonna use the BioPack Lab 11 for this. So when you open that one up, the screen will appear. It's again BioPack Student Lab 11. For this lab, at least this part of the lab, you only need the hand switch connected to your device in port 1, and then headphones, which will be connected to your BioPack as well. And that's all we're going to use for this part of the lab. You're going to have your subject seated, just like we see in the picture here. They're going to have the headphones on, and basically the headphones is going to allow them to hear sounds from the system, and so we can track their movement after that sound. So when we calibrate our device, very simply, you're going to have your subject seated, just like we see in the picture. We're going to go to our calibration tab, and as soon as they're ready, we'll hit calibrate, and then they are going to hear a sound over the headphones. When they do, they will hit our hand switch, and that'll make a mark on the screen. This is simply just calibrating the device for what we're about to do. So for the actual test, our subject is going to be seated in our chair. They're going to have the hand twitch device in their hand. And as you can see on our screen, as soon as we're ready to go for a subject, we are going to hit record. So we will hit record. Now our test will begin, and our subject, every time they hear a sound, they're going to press our hand twitch button and a signal will appear on the screen. These sounds will be random intervals during the test. And so as we'll see with our subject, each time as we zoom out, each time our subject hears a sound, they're going to click our device. They do want to make sure that your subject is pushing down hard on the device. Sometimes a soft touch on a device isn't read very well. So once your subject is done, immediately a new screen is going to appear, and it's going to ask you if you're done recording. And so we are. For this test, we're just doing this one recording for each subject. So we'll go to done, and we are going to now analyze our data. And what you're going to notice on the screen is that it is going to give us the reaction time for, there we go. It's going to give us the reaction time for each signal our subject heard. And so obviously these will vary for each one. At the bottom, it's going to give us a mean reaction time for, so far our subject here is 0.291 seconds. And so on your lab, that is going to be the reaction time you'll use for this subject. And again, you will repeat this test for each subject that you do. Okay, so for the second part of this lab, we again are going to use the BioPack. We are going to open Lab 20, which is the Spinal Reflex Lab. When you do so, the screen will pop up. For this lab, we're going to use two different attachments. In channel 1, we're going to use our Reflex Hammer that's attached to our cord. And in channel 2, we're going to use a wire that's identical to what we did for electromyography in a previous lab. So we'll have those set up, and then we are going to need to set up electrodes on our subject. To set up the electrodes for this lab, we are actually really going to get an EMG of the quadricep muscle. Now, for this lab, we don't have to be specific as to what quadricep muscle, whether it's the vastus medialis or the lateralis. That's not going to matter a whole lot for this lab. So we're just going to set my electrodes. We're just going to pick just our quadricep there. We'll go about 6, maybe 7 centimeters up from that electrode and place it there. Obviously, if your subject has hair there, that's be a little difficult to take off, so we want to be kind of gracious about that. So those will be our two main electrodes. Then we'll have our ground electrode. The best place I found to put this is on tissue that's not going to contract. So right around the patella, like on the medial side of the patella, is a good place to do that. Don't put it on the patellar tendon. We're going to need that for this lab. So I'm just going to go just medial here, away from the medialis, make sure I don't get that just on the bone. And then we're going to set up our electrodes just like we have previously. Our red and our white are a positive and negative. They can go on either of our main quadricep electrodes, it doesn't matter which one. And then our black one here is our ground. That is going to go on our ground electrode. So after we get our subject set up, we are going to go to calibration. And so for the calibration, when I hit calibrate, our subject is going to kick their leg to 90 degrees. That's going to give us a good contraction of the quadricep muscle. And then we're going to hit the reflex hammer against a flat surface. And so it'll look like this after we hit calibrate. So we'll ask our subject to kick their leg and then hit the reflex hammer on the table. And that'll calibrate our system on the screen. So to set up this lab, we're doing a patellar reflex test. And so in order to do that, we want to make sure we get a good location on the patellar tendon. So typically the way I would do that is I would have our subject just bring the leg up here passively, nice and relaxed, and try to feel for where the kind of larger part of that patellar tendon is. You'll find it there. You don't want to go too low where we're getting on bone or too high where we're on the patella. Once you find that area, you can mark it if you like, or just kind of have an idea where that is. We're then going to use our patellar hammer, and you really want to make a good contact. Don't be soft about it. Make a good swift contact, and you should get a good reflex if you hit the correct position. If you don't get a good reflex, you may want to adjust a little bit towards the medial part of the patellar tendon. That may give you a better reflex response. Or again, repeat the palpitation to get a good location on your patellar tendon. Okay, so after calibration, at this point, we're ready to do whatever task the lab is going to ask. And so you're just going to follow along with the lab. You'll have a number of tasks that you'll do with your subject, whether it's a standard knee flex recording or something else with that. Just like other tests we've done before, as soon as you're ready, you'll hit record, and then you will collect your data, you'll hit stop, and like previous labs, we will analyze that at the end of the lab.